As you have probably noticed, life is clearly not fair and plays favorites. Some people are blessed by life, being born in wealth and having everything on a plate, but there are also the ones that are hated by life, having a terrible upbringing and failing in everything they try to achieve. Life just doesn't want them around, it wants them gone, to give up. But what happens if you decide to go on despite that? What happens if you try to fight back? If you keep struggling? Will there be any light at the end of the tunnel? Or is this battle unwinnable and life will always have its way? This is the question that Berserk asks, and the answer lies in the story of Guts. Guts' life was a living hell from its very first breath. He was born from the corpse of his hanged mother. It was a miracle that he survived that. When a pregnant mother dies, the child dies shortly after, so Guts was born while his mother was hanged. He was also able to survive that fall. But knowing what will follow, you can say that this was more of a curse than a miracle. We know nothing about his family. His mother could have been just a peasant who was accused of being a heretic by the church. Or it could have been a prostitute, and Guts' father might be just a random client that left her pregnant. Another fortune or misfortune was that Guts was found by a random group of mercenaries that happened to pass by. One of the prostitutes named Shisu saw the baby in the pool of blood and rushed to pick him up. Shisu went through a miscarriage recently, so she saw the baby as her child that she lost. The mercenaries and their leader Gambino weren't pleased by the idea of taking a baby born from a corpse with them, because it is a bad omen. And, well, it was. Especially for Gambino, because Shisu was his woman in a way. But for now, they took the baby anyway. The first 3 years of Guts' life were tough, because the mercenaries were always at battle. A recurring theme for Guts is that when he finds family and people he cares about, when he finds happiness, they are always taken away from him. Surviving as a mercenary, especially in the medieval age, is no easy task. Shisu was infected with the plague. Gambino was not even there because they were in the middle of a battle, so the only person that she had was a 3-year-old Guts. He reached out to touch her mother in her final moment, even though the nurses advised him not to do. Now Guts was only left with his father figure Gambino, who clearly didn't care too much about him. Guts had to earn his living from a very young age by learning how to fight in a battlefield. Gambino taught him how to use a sword before he could even speak properly. Guts had to use the swords of the mercenaries, which were as big as him at the time. Because of that, he developed an affinity for big swords. That's what he is used to due to his early circumstances. At this point, Guts had no one, so he desperately sought the attention and recognition of Gambino, the only person close to a family. But even when he made progress, Gambino was still not impressed. In a practice duel, Guts was able to cut Gambino, but instead of being praised for his skills, Gambino permanently scarred Guts on his nose, something that will become a reminder of his early life. The mercenaries kept talking about how they should dispose of Guts, because it was a pain to care for a child, especially in a battle, and also because of the bad omen that Guts was believed to be. Because of that, Guts was too scared to even sleep, not being able to stop shaking, thinking someone will come to get rid of him, so Guts started to sleep hugging his sword, to keep him safe as a security blanket. Years have passed and Guts was getting better and better at fighting, but not enough, so occasionally he was saved by Gambino, who was still teaching him how to survive and fight. After Guts had earned his first money as a mercenary, he gave all of it to Gambino to make him proud of him, to show how he has grown thanks to his lessons. Gambino showed only a glimpse of respect, but that was good enough to make Guts happy. The problem was that in the same day, one of Gambino's mercenaries, Donovan, had come to him to buy a night with Guts. Gambino didn't care, so he took the money and sold Guts out. That night, Guts didn't have his sword near him, and Donovan had come and assaulted him in you know what way at just 9 years old. To say that this event traumatized Guts would be an understatement. Our early life and experience shapes most of who we are for the rest of our lives. And as we will see later, this happens to Guts. He always uses big sword, he is unable to sleep without holding a sword, and he does not allow anyone to even slightly touch him. All of these are a result of his rough childhood. This will define who he is, and even more is about to come. That night, Donovan tells Guts that Gambino sold him off. The next morning, Guts tries to confront his father, but with no results. The only relief that he had for the moment was swinging his sword. In the next battle, Guts took his revenge on Donovan. He tortured and killed him behind his back. In the same battle, Gambino was gravely injured and lost a leg, becoming unable to be the commander or even to take part in a battle. Guts was there to comfort his passed out father just like he did with his mom. Despite of everything that happened, he was abused verbally and physically by this man, and he is still by his side. This is the only thing that he has. He is not even aware of any other options. This is his perception about life. Another 2 years have passed and Guts had managed to take the head of a general in battle. As usual, he goes to tell his father about his achievement, but Gambino treats Guts poorly as usual, beating him up and ordering him around. In these 2 years, Gambino had become useless, a burden for the rest of the mercenaries. Some of them even joke about this, and this very much upsets Gambino. This is when he reached his boiling point. In that night, drunk, he goes to kill Guts. This is the moment when he let out everything he had on his mind. He blames Guts for Shisu's death multiple times and for his missing leg, how he is no longer a commander and just a joke, how everything is because of Guts, because he was a bad omen and he should have let him die that day at the base of the tree. He even admits that he sold him to Donovan. Guts was unable to even process what is happening right now. Gambino took a swing at Guts and, in self-defense, he killed his father. And this was the first breaking point of Guts. This moment scarred him to the point of no recovery. The wound on his nose will forever be a reminder of this day and this moment. The other mercenaries had come to see what happened, only to find a dead Gambino and a bloodied Guts. The mercenaries attack him and he runs for his life, but he is shot and falls from a cliff. Shortly after, he is surrounded by a pack of wolves, and in that moment, he decided to give up. He had enough after everything that happened. Life had won. He just wanted things to end. But instinctively, he still fought back with his sword, not knowing why. Deep down, he still wanted to live. So the struggle continues. After the fight was over, he fell unconsciousness and he was taken by another group of mercenaries. This was just the first 11 years of his life. I explained this early part in quite detail because it highlights how Guts will behave and interacts with other people for the rest of the story. This childhood shaped him and is the foundation of his future action. So let's see what the rest of the story has in store for him. During a raid when Guts was 15 years old, he managed to kill a powerful general named Bazuso in a 1v1 battle. This got the attention of the leader of the Band of the Hawk, Griffith. We are not here to talk about Griffith, but he is an essential part of this section of the story, so we cannot just ignore him. The Band of the Hawk is a group of very young mercenaries. Griffith is just 15 at this moment, and he is neither a noble or has any high rank position. He is just a normal guy with humble beginnings, but the difference is that Griffith is favored and loved by fate and life. Griffith was born to succeed. Everything he puts on his mind he is able to accomplish, even if it is something crazy. He wants to have his own kingdom and to be its king. And if it is someone that can do this, it is Griffith. That's why people in the Band of the Hawk follow and even worships him at times, believing that as long as they are by his side they will succeed and turn their own dreams in reality. Guts and Griffith are the exact opposites. One has white silky long hair, looks like a noble and fights calculated and elegant. The other one has short black spiky hair, has a rough appearance and fights using brute force. And yet, at the base, they are somehow related. And this leads them to their encounter. After the raid, Guts is attacked by the Band of the Hawk and Griffith. In this moment, Guts is defeated by Griffith, but later he is healed and they engage into another 1v1 battle, but with a deal this time. If Guts wins, he kills Griffith, and if he loses, he will join the band and will obey every order from Griffith. And well, Guts loses that match. Griffith is more skillful than him at this time. So now Guts belongs to him. From now on, he will be a member of the Band of the Hawk. During this time is shown how Guts still has nightmares. How Donovan chases him. He tries to fight back, but he is unable to do any damage with his sword. He begs for help from Gambino, only to show how he is dead by his hand. Years later, he is still haunted by those two events. But for once, things started to look a bit better. After some time and a few battles in the band, Guts shows his strength as a swordsman and earns his trust and respect from the band. A party is made in the name of Guts, but he is reluctant to join in, so the core members had to drag him there. Here he witnesses something new and strange. For the first time, people admire Guts, and yet Guts still feels weird about it. After the party is over, he returns to the top of the castle. Guts feels safer when he is alone at night with his back against something and with his sword close to him. Here Guts has a conversation with Judo about his new environment. Guts never felt something like this. This broke his perception on mercenaries. The Band of the Hawk is different from your average group of mercenaries. They don't care about money. I mean, they do, but they first care about their dreams, and they treat each other like family. Something that Guts yearned for all his life. During this conversation, Guts keeps touching his nose scar. He always wanted recognition, company, a place to call home. The scar reminds him that this is just a dream. But here, it seems that he found something. This is the first time Guts felt like he could look at life and the future more optimistically. Years passed and Guts had become the captain of the Raiders. He had become more close to Griffith than the others in the band, and people, especially the Raiders, trust him and think very highly of him. The only exception is Crocus because he is just an asshole, but there is also Casca, who acts very cold around him because she is jealous about his position in Griffith's eyes. He had become his right hand, a position that Casca wanted, but also because Griffith puts himself in danger to save Guts, and this upsets her. One of those moments is when Guts had met for the first time with the reality of this world. He met with Nosferatu Zod, a very powerful apostle. Even though he is able to put up a fight with human Zod, he is no match for the demon Zod. Griffith steps in to save him, but he is knocked unconscious and almost killed if it was not for the Crimson Behelit. His Behelit is a symbol of how he is favored by everything. Zod warns Guts for what is about to happen. Griffith will ruin all of them. But he doesn't give too much importance until he begins to question his life and his relationship with Griffith. One night, Griffith tasks Guts to assassinate one of his enemies for the crown. Guts is the only one who can do that because he's the only one he can fully trust, the only one allowed to see his true side. They think of each other as equals and friends because they are similar in many ways, or at least that's what one of them believes. During the mission, Guts spots Julius and his son training, and this reminds him of him and Gambino. He sees himself into this child, and this is the reason why it's so heartbreaking when Guts kills the child by mistake. He had killed Julius, but the child entered the room in a bad moment. He rushed to kill the witnesses, but it turned out to be just a child. The guards had come to check, and Guts runs into the sewers, where the nightmares begins again. That child was innocent. He had a slow and painful death, coughing blood and crying, reaching with his hand for help. In this instance, Guts sees himself as the monster. Dirty and beaten down, he seeks the only person who he can speak about this, and when he sees Griffith, he hears the line that changes Guts' perspective on life. For Griffith, a friend is someone who will never depend on others' dreams. He dislikes people that live without a reason. He has no friends because a friend is someone that he considers to be his equal. Something that Guts has always thought he is, but it was shattered in this moment. Guts realizes that he no longer belongs here. He no longer can live like this. He has no dream and he needs to find his purpose far away from here. This moment changes the entire story, and it was definitely for the worst. The only good thing that happened in this period for Guts was Casca. During a certain event, they are stuck together where they start to see there is more to each other than what it seems, and their relationship begins to develop in a good way. Guts admires how a woman can live and fight in a world who favors men, how she is stronger than the majority, and Casca sees how Guts is not a brute or just a mad dog. He really cares for his allies and is willing to die for them because they have dreams and purpose. Something that Guts doesn't have at this moment, so he thinks himself as not important. Because of this new bond between them, Guts insinuates to Casca that soon he will leave the Band of the Hawk, and sure he does. After Griffith secures his place as a noble and the war is over, he decided to leave without telling anyone. But they still found out. Judo, as usual, is the best bro and even encourages Guts to go on and follow his vision. But the rest were not so happy about it. Griffith was very angry and challenges Guts once again. But this time, he is the one with no chance, and he is defeated in just a second. This was the first real loss to Griffith. He is unable to process what just happened, and he breaks. Casca, seeing how Guts leaves, realizes how much she wants Guts in her life, but it's already too late. He's already gone. Later, Guts meets with a strange figure known as the School Knight, who plays a big role in Guts' future life. He reminds him of the prophecy and warns him for what is about to happen. It looks like fate wants Guts dead, but at a specific point. Just like in his last battle where Zod gave him a sword, because he was not meant to die, at least not just yet. 1 year passed by and now Guts just wanders in search for skillful opponents. He had found a blacksmith named Godo and a girl named Erika in the mountains. Godo is more of a mentor for Guts. He is the one from where Guts realizes that his purpose, his dream, is to keep seeking and fighting stronger opponents. Godo was a blacksmith since he was just a boy, and he was so focused on perfecting his crafts that he didn't even had a moment to think if he likes it or not, before he had time to realize that he was already an old man. So now Guts finally knows what he truly wants to do. But this didn't last too much, because he hears about the Band of the Hawk and how they are hunted by the king. Turns out that Griffith fucked things over with the princess, and all this time he was locked in a cell being tortured. And the rest of the band either left, were killed, or cling to their last hope to save Griffith, so maybe they can return to their former glory. Now Casca is the leader, but she is in a very bad shape. One night they are attacked by a group of mercenaries, but Guts is there to save them. The next day, Casca and Guts have a dispute. Casca tells Guts how he abandoned them. He abandoned Griffith. He is the one that caused his broken state. Guts is unable to believe that. He thought he was so insignificant that Griffith will not care about him. They were never friends, he was just his soldier. But that was not true. Guts was Griffith's most trusted man, his only true friend, the only one who made him forget about his dream. But even Griffith didn't realize that until it was too late. Casca tries to jump off a cliff, but Guts saved her and they have a tender moment. The two finally admit how they feel to each other, how they can let their guard down and relieve. During this moment they comfort each other, showing their lowest points. But Guts are very down the road. This moment reminds him of Donovan. He is still unable to have intimate contact. Without even realizing, Guts chokes Casca. Luckily, he manages to stop, but then he has a full breakdown in front of her. He reveals how he killed his father. This is the first time he said it out loud. He cannot hold it in anymore. He tries to leave, but Casca is there for him, and the two hugged. Guts finally had found someone that loves him, despite his flaws, and he finally is able to let go of his past. As they fall asleep, Guts remembers his only happy memory as a child, when Gambino gave Guts medicine for his wound. And with that, we reach the peak of happiness for Guts. From now on, there is only tragedy. The main party goes to rescue Griffith from his prison, and when they find him, they see the horror. He's just a husk of what he once was. His body was damaged to the point of being just a living doll, unable to do anything except existing and watching. The thing that he hated the most. He saw how Guts had evolved and compared him to the state that he's in. He blames Guts for this and even tries to strangle him, but he cannot do anything. This is when Griffith hits his bottom. They manage to escape with Griffith from a group of assassins and even an apostle that Guts had managed to defeat. Guts, now seeing the beat down Band of the Hawk and how his old rider team beg to follow him even if it's no longer in the band, he realizes that he made a mistake. He belongs here. People cared about him here. He only realized this after he lost them, so he decided to stay. But at the same time, Griffith runs away and tries to give up on life. And this is when the evil gods of this world are summoned, and the eclipse have started. Here Griffith has the option to become a member of the God Hand. Under great pressure, he reverts back to his old self. He will get his own kingdom no matter how. He chose to sacrifice everyone. The only one that survived the slaughter are Guts because he's just that good at fighting, and Casca because she's a woman. God damn, it's hard to be a woman in this story. After Griffith rebirth as a Dark Falcon or Batman, he saw the two and decided to take his revenge on Guts using Casca. Guts howls like an animal. He never felt this much rage in his life. All his friends died, and now he is forced to watch this. He slowly cuts his own hand to escape and come for Griffith, but he's stopped immediately, and his right eye is destroyed, forever sealing this image within it. Then they are saved by School Knight and brought back to Godot because he has a cave where Elf used to live once, so the spirits of monsters of the night will not enter. This is because Casca and Guts are now marked with the brand of sacrifice. Their body, down to the last drop of blood, belongs to the demons. They will be forever hunted every night by them, and when their life will end, their souls will be dragged to hell. Things could not go any worse, but they surely did. Guts, now fully wounded without an eye and an arm, only wants to see Casca, and he sees her, but she is different. Her mind was shattered and now she is at the level of a toddler. She is not even able to speak. Guts doesn't even know how to process all of this. This is his worst nightmare, a nightmare that he is unable to wake up from. Guts starts to run without a direction. He is unable to even express what he feels, and he runs and runs until he falls on the ground. His friends, his family, his love were again taken from him. Life gives Guts hope and happiness only to take them away from him in the most horrible manner. He is unable to keep people close to him. Everyone ends up in a tragic way. Shortly after, School Knight appears and informs him about the brand and the new world he has to live in. But Guts realizes that this is nothing new. This is just a new battle. And in a way, he is right. He has been through this multiple times, but not on this scale. This time is different. Guts needs to be careful, otherwise he will slip into the darkness as well and become a real monster this time. Before School Knight leaves, Guts witnesses yet another tragedy. Casca gives birth to a demon child, and this is no random child. This is Guts' son that was corrupted by Griffith. This will be yet another thing that will haunt Guts, because a child will follow their parents. Guts decides what he needs to do next. He will seek revenge for every single person from the Band of the Hawk. Griffith will pay for what he has done, alongside every apostle that was there and devoured his allies. Godot and Rickard, who is the only fully survivor of the band because he did not participate in the eclipse, equip Guts for battle, with an artificial arm cannon, a rapid-fire crossbow, many knives, and of course, the Dragon Slayer, a huge chunk of metal that can be wielded only by someone like Guts. His sword has the power to kill anything, either man or demon. This will be the only thing that Guts can fully rely on. So Guts begins a new journey, but this will definitely not be a journey good for him. It will only drag him even more down the pit, as if he wasn't already low enough. Guts slowly slips back into his old bad habits. He again doesn't allow anyone to slightly touch him and becomes aggressive when they do so. He actively pushes people away from him because he knows what happens when they get close to him. He is hunted by demons every night, and yet he still accepts a ride from an old man and a little girl, leading to their death, reinforcing Guts' conclusion that people should stay away from him. They are just ants who will not survive this new reality. Or this is what he wants to believe, at least. In his seek for revenge, Guts becomes more violent and reckless, leading to him being gravely wounded after each battle with an apostle. He becomes obsessed with revenge, to the point of doing anything in order to get it and reach Griffith. He has sex with the apostle that killed Crocus, just to kill her more easily. The one that has trauma from intimate contact now does it to an apostle, showing how he discards everything when he has his target at his sword reach. With every kill he walks more into a dark path. 2 years pass since the eclipse and Guts meets at a bar with an elf named Puck. Puck later becomes just a comedic character, but right now he is like a tiny light in a completely dark room. He is the only light in Guts' life at this moment. He tries to heal Guts, but he pushes him away. In fact, he does this constantly. Puck follows this man because in a way he is drawn to him. His dust helped him in the past, and now despite Guts' behavior, he still wants to help him, because he knows this man needs help, otherwise he can become just like the ones he hunts. During the killing of his next 2 targets, many innocent lives are taken. To kill the Snake Baron, an entire village burned and even childs have been killed. But Guts didn't care, because in this way he had drawn the Snake Baron out and managed to kill him. The only one to have a normal reaction is Puck, who was horrified at the sight. Yet this does not compare to the events of the slug count, because here Guts cannot pretend he doesn't care. His true side is visible between the cracks. Vargas was an old man that was tortured and had his family killed by the Count. So he decided to help Guts so he can kill the Count. Guts insults him and even kicks him after he was touched by him. But in a way he relates to him. He is marked by his story. He's like him but at a very small scale. Please avenge me. So when he is decapitated, he feels guilt. He tries to ignore this feeling, but he cannot. Puck and even his own child are there to make the burden even more heavier. So he goes to kill the Count. When he is almost dead, the Count Behelit activates and Guts meets with Griffith once again. And this is when he realizes he still cannot do anything to him. He cannot go even near him. You are beneath my notice. During all this time, the daughter of the Count, Theresia, was present. She was used as a hostage by Guts, and she even witnessed the whole scene with her father and the God Hand. So now she is in a very bad mental state, just like Guts. It is my interpretation, but this moment when Guts encourages Theresia to just end things, to give up, in a way he was talking to himself. He was powerless and it would be much easier to just end things there. But Theresia blames everything that happened on Guts. He is the one responsible for everything. Guts regrets what he did to her, and when no one is looking, he starts to cry. Guts is not like this, but he has to be, because if he doesn't have his anger, then he has nothing. He would be a hollow husk. During the events of the next expedition and target, Guts hits his darkest point. Here he is the most brutal and savage in the entire story. It is here where the Beast of Darkness begins to take shape. In this arc he is up against Rosine, a child apostle that killed a big portion of the Band of the Hawk even before the eclipse. Besides her powers as an apostle, she also has an army of little fairies, created by transforming child using cocoons. So in a way, those are innocent children that were tricked and now are forced to submit to Rosine's command. But the current Guts couldn't care less about this. He kills the little monsters like they were fleas. During the final battle between them, he steps through fire to burn them, and then he uses the blood from a cocoon to extinguish the fire on him, even biting on a child's intestine. This horrifies everyone present, even Rosine. Guts only sees one thing, and this is his target. Just like in his previous battles with an apostle, Guts uses the remaining humanity of his enemy in order to kill him. The Count cared about his daughter, so Guts used her as a hostage. Here, Guts have met with a girl named Jill. She saw Guts as an escape from her cruel small world that she was trapped in, and she was kind to him. And well, Guts was decent enough with her comparing to the other incidents. Jill and Rosine have a history together. They were once close friends, and Guts used this to his advantage, to deal a heavy hit on her. Even after Rosine is at her death door, Guts still comes to ensure she is finished. But he is stopped by Jill and an army that had come for him. The world doesn't know about magic and apostles, so to them the black swordsman is a berserk warrior that kills everything around him. And they are not wrong. After he kills the little fairies, they are transformed back to their original forms. So the Holy Chain Knights saw a pile of dead children. Everywhere Guts was, he left disaster behind. And this time, there will be consequences. At some point, his child had come to hunt him again and show him the horror of his action, but he still didn't budge and murdered the children's yet again. So after everything is done, the darkness within Guts starts to take shape. The beast of darkness started to manifest. This beast represents all that is evil and dark in Guts. He accumulates so much of it in these 2 years that now has the power to take control over him, and it will be the new spirit that will hunt him. His child, while it looked like it was against Guts, in reality it was trying to help him in a way, to save him from becoming this, by showing him the reality of his action, and sadly, he had failed. But Guts realizes this in a small way, so he lets his guard down a bit. He finally accepts Puck as his companion, and even calls him by his name, not just Bug. His dust is extremely useful for him after all. I mean, did you see in what state he's in after every fight? The Holy Iron Chain Knights manage to capture Guts due to his beaten up state. He meets with a guy named Serpico and a commander named Farnese. Farnese gets a taste of the real world around Guts, and Guts later escapes and retreats to Godot's house to see Casca, because his child told him something bad is about to happen to her, and when he meets with Rickard, he learns that she is gone. Guts gets mad at them, but Godot is here to give him a reality check. Guts was the one who left them behind. He chose his petty revenge instead of protecting Casca and Rickard, the only remaining members of the Band of the Hawk. Godot tells Guts that instead of keep following this path, why not just run away? Run away from hatred. 2 years ago, when Guts embarked into his journey, he actually chose the easy way. He abandoned everything he had left after the eclipse. Instead of confronting the reality and Casca's new state, he chose to run away from those problems and feed his hatred. He said that he goes to avenge his dead friends, and yet he abandons the ones that are still alive, the ones that actually matter, because no one is coming back, no matter what Guts does. Unlike Guts, Rickard did something for the dead. He created the Hill of Swords. He forged and used hundreds of swords as gravestone to commemorate his dead companions, a symbol of remembrance that will remain for a while. And that night, alone in the cave, Guts contemplates about his choice and what he did so far. The beast of darkness appears and pushes him towards more blood and killing. But this made Guts realizes that Godot was right. He realizes that he did the exact same mistake in the past. He abandoned his friends when they needed him, but this time is different, because this time he has time to repair his mistake. He goes to save Casca. Now the next arc is quite big, and there is not as much character development for Guts compared to what happened until now. The focus switches between multiple characters, and we are here only for Guts, so we'll go much faster through these events. If you want to know the full story, read the manga, it's great, trust me. Casca ends up at the Tower of Conviction, where Mozgus operates. And these guys are even worse than the Apostles. During these events, Casca manages to survive and not be pursued or killed by the demons thanks to her child who protected her until the verge of death. Because two marked people are present here and many dead souls, they transform into a blob-like creature, and Guts has to fight humans and demons to save Casca. The Egg Apostle that was present here took the baby because he reminds him of himself. He wants to give the baby a peaceful end before the new world is created, so he let him rest inside his body. Both Casca and Guts sense the child inside the Apostle, but they don't have the luxury to worry about him. It is here where things take a twist of events. The Egg Apostle is about to bring the new world that everyone desires. The baby inside him starts to take shape and transform into Griffith. He has materialized into this world. He now has a body made of flesh, made from Guts and Casca's child. But something weird happened with Guts. The Griffith that it is here looks like the one he knew during the Band of the Hawk times. Not the one that was tortured beyond recognition, or the one that looked like the Dark Falcon that killed his friends. So for a moment, Guts forgets about his urge to kill him, something that he cannot accept. Griffith does not deserve this. He needs to pay for what he did. But before he gets to him, he looks bad at Casca. She is the reason he is here, not Griffith. So Guts finally does the right thing and runs away with Casca to safety, back to Godot's house. Griffith had followed them there to see if he would feel anything like when he was human, but he doesn't, which makes Guts very mad. After all those you betray, you don't feel anything? And Griffith's response is that the only thing he will not betray is his dream. Normally he will actually be emotionless, but because of that infant that he fused with his body and mind, he feels something, especially towards Casca, and even she seems to sense her child within Griffith. So then he decided to leave. Now Guts has a new mission, to take Casca to a safe place, far away from here, from all those demons and monsters, far from Griffith. They need to go to the home of the elves, Elfhelm. So Guts takes Casca and Puck and departure, saying goodbye to Rickard and Erika. Sadly, he didn't manage to speak with Godot because he died of an old age, which would have been interesting because only from now on, Guts will truly understand what Godot meant when he said he took the easy way. Guts now needs to protect not only himself from the demons, but also Casca. And that means he no longer has the luxury to put himself in danger, because that would put Casca in danger as well. If he dies, she dies as well. He needs to fight carefully. No more recklessness, no more berserk. His sword had become much heavier. But that's not even the biggest problem. In this journey, Guts hopes that he can reconnect with Casca, even in the state that she's in. After the eclipse, he spent little to no time with Casca, and even when he did, things ended poorly. So now he wants to redeem himself and focus on what's important. But things go the opposite direction. Because there are two marked people, more monsters are attracted. Guts needs to keep Casca as close to him as possible so monster will be at his blade reach. But because of Casca's mental state, she doesn't stay still and is not aware of the danger she's in. Guts looks in sorrow at her. She now is just a shadow of her old self, a warrior woman capable of almost anything. Now she's no longer Guts' love partner, but just a child that he needs to care for. And we already know how bad Guts is with children. The Beast of Darkness even messed up with him. Right now, Casca is a burden, and if she would be dead, there will be nothing to stop Guts from pursuing Griffith. He could return to his previous path, which is tempting for him. And the situation gets even worse. One night, Guts gets possessed by the spirits and he's forced to choke Casca. She's not able to understand the situation, so when she wakes up, she's terrified by Guts. She looks at him with dead eyes. She starts to run away from him, increasing the distance between them with each step. Casca showed a little trust in Guts after the events at the Tower of Conviction, but now it is all ruin. And this results in Casca being tied up and dragged around by Guts, and she clearly hates it, making her even colder to him. But he doesn't know any other solution. This situation frustrates Guts. With each day, the relationship gets worse. He cannot even remember the last time she smiled. At some point, Casca escaped and had met with 3 random soldiers that jumped onto her, making her remember her trauma from the eclipse, and instinctively kills them with a sword. When Guts saw her in this state, naked and with a bloodied sword in her hand, it reminds him of her old self, and he couldn't restrain himself any longer. He sexually assaulted her and even bites into her flesh. Her screams makes Guts snapped out of this, and he saw what he has done. And this is when things are over between them. If there was a drop of hope before, now it is completely gone. This is when he realizes he cannot continue his journey like this. He himself had become as dangerous for Casca as the monster he tries to protect her from. Luckily for him, his past good deeds had come to reward him. 3 new people had come to join Guts on his adventure. Ishidoro is a kid that he had met quite a while back, and he started to follow Guts because he thinks he is very cool. But he is also joined by Farnese and Serpico. Serpico is here just to ensure Farnese is safe. He is like her bodyguard. But she has an interesting reason. Guts showed her the real world. Up until now, she lived unaware of what was in front of her. blindly following her religion without question. But she wants to change. She wants to become a better person, to be useful. Guts is the one who she admires. And Guts allows them to follow him around as long as they don't bother him, which is something new for him. He never did something like that, not even in the Golden Age with the Band of the Hawk. He was forced to enter it. He always pushed people away from him immediately, no matter who they were. He wanted to rely only on him and not let others in his life, because they will suffer by just standing near him. But now, deep down, he needs people around him to take care of Casca, to keep him human. He gave up and recognized how powerless he actually is, so the three joins the party. Guts begins to change for the good. At first things aren't so great in the party. Farnese becomes Casca caretaker and she loses her, but she was alright, and the two of them over time develop quite a good relationship, to the point of being the only one who is able to take care of her. And luck seems to be still on Guts' side. Well, luck at least in Berserk terms. They met with two witches who provide a safe spot for them and even offer to help Guts with his mark by making a seal over it to stop monsters from hunting them, and a lot of magic equipment and weapons. One of the witch is even an old friend of School Knight. She informs Guts about the existence of magic and even about the God Hand and his Behelit that he took from the Count. But there is a price for all of this. They need to go to a nearby village and help them with a troll problem in her stead. It is not hard for them to do that. They already do this like every night. Plus they had the little witch Shirke with them who makes everything much easier. But things get a bit complicated. More powerful monsters started to appear and Casca and Farnese were kidnapped. So they have to go after them into the monster den, which turns out to be the domain of Selan, one of the God Hands. Because of Griffith's reincarnation in the human world, magical monsters had become more powerful, allowing them to step into the real world for a short period. They managed to take back the girls and now they try to escape, with Guts offering to hold the monsters while they run. This is when he meets with Selan, who badly injures him down to his soul. School Knight appears to save him and Guts manages to send Selan back to the Astral-world. His sword is imbued with the malice of hundreds of thousands of the dead. It has powerful magical abilities that can cut the spirits and monsters. But School Knight has a more badass sword. The situation got out of control, so School Knight uses the Sword of Actuation that has the power to open a portal to other dimensions, and even to Hell. With this, he can drag creatures to Hell or teleport himself around, so everyone manages to escape. After everything is done, Guts reflects on these events and realizes how helpful everyone is, how easier was with them. The sight of everyone together reminds him of his old team in the Band of the Hawk. After so long, he found it again. Companions, something that he thought he will never have again. This is one of the most warming moments of the story, to see him finding happiness once again. But before things could get even better, they had to go a bit bad. A bit more bad. Now, the God Hand and Griffith know about the presence of the two witches, and they know how dangerous Flora could be. No humans or monsters can stand in their way, but mages are a different thing. Mages have the power to put up a fight with Griffith. So he sent his army to take care of her. Even two of the generals had come, Zod and Grumbelt. School Knight is also there to protect her, but with Zod there, he can only delay the inevitable. Guts' party joins the fight, but Guts in particular is in no shape for this. Again, this guy has a wound down to his soul, and even his armor was destroyed. So in this fight, he's more like a target dummy for Grumbelt. But things change when the Berserker armor is added into the mix. Once Guts puts on the armor, the whole fight changes into his favor. He dismantles and butchers everything in his path without control, like a berserker. But there is a catch to the armor. The armor doesn't give you any new powers or enhances your abilities. Instead, allows you to no longer feel pain or fear. It makes you more hungry for blood, just like the Beast of Darkness. That's why the armor takes its shape. The Beast of Darkness is now fully in control over Guts. And on top of that, the new raw power, it is actually just Guts' normal power. The Berserker armor just removes Guts' body limitation. Limitation that has the purpose to protect you from not breaking your muscle, bones, or anything like that. It is said that the last user of the berserker armor fought until he broke every bone in his body and his last drop of blood spilled out. This armor is more of a downgrade. It is a final desperate solution. With it, Guts manages to defeat Grumbeld and even inflict quite some damage to his dragon form, while in the same time he was slashing the small apostles. Shirke goes to drag Guts out of the influence of the Beast of Darkness and the armor, because otherwise Guts would have died here. Many of his bones were broken, his muscles were damaged and he lost a lot of blood, so they decided to leave Flora and escape from there. When they finally found a safe spot where they could rest easily, Griffith had come again and took it from them. Even when Guts had decided to give up on his path, it still followed him everywhere. Fate still wants Guts and will not let him rest. The time after this event was definitely not fun for Guts. The armor was fused into his body and it took days to take it off. When they finally removed it, all the pain that was suppressed hit Guts like a train. He was constantly slipping in and out of consciousness and it took weeks until he got just a bit better. Not only that, but the school knight had come and warned Guts about the armor. He was the previous user and the armor cannot be controlled, even if you believe so. The moment you slightly lose control, the armor will take in. Plus he will lose more than that. Taste, sight, shivering the fingers, the armor will take everything if he keeps using it. But there is also some good things in this moment. When they reach the beach, Guts has a peaceful and pleasant view. He sees how everyone is enjoying this moment, including Casca. After so long, she smiled again. It is here where they learn from School Knight that the king of the elves can actually restore Casca's mind. Just thinking about the idea makes Guts full of hope and happiness. He can get back what he thought to be lost forever. The one thing that he loves the most. He can get the old Casca back. Guts wants this more than anything. But would she want this? Even though she is broken, this makes her unaware of the real horrors she lives in. If her mind is restored, she will have to face what put her into this state. She is more happy now, in a way. She can live the rest of her days in a rather peaceful illusion. So this will put some doubt into Guts' mind. Later that night, Casca had met with a mysterious child that strangely looks very similar to her. This is actually their child. Both Guts and Casca have a feeling of attachment to this child. Guts even thinks about the demon baby when he sees him. They feel like a family. And just like in the past, when the situation got bad, when Guts is again taken over by the armor and not even Shirky is able to save him, the child is the one to snap him out of the armor's influence. He still saves them, but then he just vanishes. Unlike the last time, beside his appearance, now he seems to have much greater magical abilities. And when everything is over, Guts spots the silhouette of Nosferatu Zad. Something is happening that right now he is not fully aware of. And so the party continues their journey. To get to the Elfhelm, which is on an island far away from here, they will need a boat. Farnese tries to get one from her wealthy family, but that comes at the cost of herself. And it is definitely not worth it. I mean, who's gonna take care of Casca? These two kids? So they go after her. The problem was that they were caught in the middle of an apostle war between Griffith's army and Ganishka's Kushan monster army. Guts again gets out of control and it is in a very bad state. He has a hole in him that is like an open valve. And this time something weird happened. Shirke's soul was dragged into the armor and now she's right next to Guts' soul, making him fully conscious while wearing the armor. But things got even worse. Zad and Ganishka appear to the battlefield to fight each other, and for the first and only time, Guts and Zad made an alliance and fought alongside each other to defeat a common enemy. And because of that, Zod decided to leave Guts alone for now. The party actually got their hands on a boat thanks to Roderick, a guy who has a crush on Farnes and also likes the party and wants to see Elfhelm as well. So they set sail. While on their trip, Griffith in his victory against Ganishka had merged the astral world with the physical world, meaning all sorts of monsters, fairies, dragons and anything you can imagine now appears in the human world. Griffith plans to make his kingdom the only safe place in the world. Guts' party felt the change, but even to this point, which is chapter 370, 76 didn't experience the real effect this event had on the real world, because not longer after they landed on Elfhelm. They finally reached it. It took some annoying pirates and Cthulhu to get here, but hey, here we are. This island is filled with elves, mages and fantastical creatures, but most importantly, here resides the queen of the elves, the Flower Storm Monarch, also known as the Nan, and she makes quite a wonderful present. Even Guts is impressed. But then he immediately remembers about the reason why they made his journey in the first place. Before he could even say anything, the Nan already told him that she can do it. She can heal Casca's mind. This line took a heavy stone from his chest. He, for now, at least gets some relief. The Nan can tell how impatient Guts is, so she started the ritual right away. The problem is that he will not be the one to help with that. Hell, he is not even allowed at the ritual. And the reason is not because the Nan doesn't like Guts or anything like that. It is because of Casca. She can sense a deep fear within Casca towards Guts, and it is likely that she is not referring only to the mental ill Casca. I will explain this in just a minute. So Farnese and Shirky go with the Nan to a shrine where they will enter Casca's mind and try to heal it. The next section is very deep and full of symbolism, and is one of my favorite parts of the entire story, but maybe we'll discuss it about in another video, because again this one is only about Guts. But I still want to mention the way Guts is represented in this dream. Even though Casca's mind was broken, she was still aware of what was going around in some way. In her twisted mind, she sees Guts as a beaten down dog that carries her coffin around, protecting her broken doll form. He now looks like what she thought of him in the Golden Age, just a mad dog chained to her, still clinging to her shattered state. It is quite tragic, but hopeful as well, to know that he still hasn't given up on her. While the girls are on the job, Guts is sitting alone, staring at the shrine location. He is unable to relax, not knowing what is gonna happen. Serpico and Roderick join him to comfort him. Guts takes this moment to thank them for what they did to him. This whole journey wouldn't have been possible without them. He set aside his old mindset because he couldn't have continued that way. Guts has really changed for the better. Serpico even thanks him back for changing Farnese. She learned to be her own person and she had grown stronger. But Guts' mind goes somewhere else. He once again thinks about what School Knight had told him. Will Casca still find happiness if she comes back? And the answer is a bit complicated. After a long and painful journey, the girls managed to restore Casca's mind. They made her whole again. For the first time since the eclipse, she started to speak. Right now, she feels like she just woke from a very, very long dream. She thanks all of them for what they've done for her all this time. She doesn't seem to remember about the eclipse or Griffith, but when the girl asks about Guts, Casca starts to cry. She is eager to meet with Guts in a proper way this time. The Nun even dresses her up for the occasion. It seems that everything was worth it. Guts finally got a happy ending, but that would be too easy for him. The moment she sees Guts, everything that was missing from her mind hits her back like a storm. She remembers how they found Griffith, what happened during the eclipse, and how dark Guts had become after these events, making her scream, and she fainted. Casca is not Guts. Guts was put over the edge and lost control on multiple occasions. He barely managed to pass over the trauma, and even now, he's not fully over it. There is a reason why she was in that state. She is unable to deal with this event. The moment she speaks about the past, or she sees Guts, or even hears his voice, she sees only demons and starts having a panic attack. During this journey, Guts has his doubts. He felt like he no longer belongs with Casca, so he started to be more distant, to let others take care of her. And after this, it feels more and more clear that she is better without him. He only makes her suffer, which deeply hurts him. Right now, the distance between them is even bigger. But at least, in a way, he is satisfied. Casca is back. That was the point of this journey. If she is happy and healthy, that's enough for him. Right now, she is in the safest spot. Nothing bad will come here and they can spend their time here and relax. But again, that will be too simple. Fate is still after Guts, and it will not stop hunting him until he will die or give up When the full moon appears, Casca and Guts' child comes to them once again. It looks like whenever it is full moon, he appears no matter where they are. Guts takes the child to Casca and they spend a few days together because times move different on the island. Everyone seeing these moments, it feels like they are a happy big family. Except for Guts, who sits alone far away from everyone. The child comes to spend some time with him as well, but after a short time he sends him back to Casca. He once again pushes people away, but this time is out of fear. He lost his confidence and his self-worth. And when the full moon started to disappear, the child transforms back into his original form. He transforms into Griffith. Because his real fleshy body was created from the demon baby, he now has control over Griffith to some degree. In the nights with full moon, he is able to take control and shape the body to his form. That's why Zod was present that night, and that's why the child is so powerful. It is impressive how this child has the power to control a demon god, but maybe it is more than that. Griffith also had dreamed at some point to a simple life like this, and maybe there is a small part within him that lets this happen. Or the child's feelings to see his parents are that strong. After all, he was strong when he was a baby, but I'm probably reading too much into this. The moment Guts sees Griffith, he is filled with rage. This is the first moment they meet since his rebirth, and this time he's alone, so he rushes towards him and swings a powerful blow onto him, but it passes through him, and he tries again and again, but the same thing. He is unable to do any damage to him, not even touch him. His sword is useless against him. Griffith dominates everyone present there. Soon after, Nosferatu Zod comes in, and Griffith unleashes the angry spirits that were sleeping underneath the island, just like at the Tower of Conviction. But before he destroys the island and leaves, he takes Casca with him. The moment Casca was finally healed, Griffith had come once again and destroyed everything, taking even the last thing Guts had that made him happy. So he lost even his last drop of hope. He once again wasn't able to do anything but watch. He in the end gives up. The island started to sing and everyone, including the mages, runs towards the ship. The Nen and everything that was magical returns to the astral world. They no longer can stay here. It is no longer safe. This was Griffith's plan. Only magic can have a chance against him, so he eliminates Elfhelm, the biggest threat for his kingdom and fantasy. Everyone's morale is down, like really down. Whenever they find hope or safety, it is quickly taken away by Griffith. He wins every time. Even if they run and ignore him, he doesn't ignore them. It seems like there is no escape from him. Guts is not even able to stand on his own feet. This was the last time he could take in the tragedy. He cannot take it in anymore. Even his sword, the one thing that he could rely on no matter the situation, that was always besides him, but it seems that even the sword had failed him. His sword was completely useless in this situation. He starts to sink into the ocean that was his mind, deep down where the beast of darkness is. Because right now darkness is the only thing he can see. Guts is not even capable of swinging his sword, because every time he misses, he sees Griffith sitting on the top of his sword as he always did, looking at him with superiority. A group of Kushans, where Slat and even Rickard are, attack the boat. The Kushans capture Guts extremely easily, dragging him around with chains like a corpse. He doesn't even hinge and falls down. When they reach the Bakiraka hideout, Guts' armor is taken away and he is chained and locked up in a cell. Right now, no one is sure what he is capable of or in what mind state he's in. Even his spirit is almost swept away by the currents, but Shirke is there to make sure this doesn't happen. And sadly for now, this is the last bit of story we have on our hands, and we will have to wait for more. Guts' story is not yet done. The book is still open. We all know that this is not how things will end. Even in the state that he is in right now, he will rise up and stand on his feet once again, like he always does. Every time when he is pushed down, he gets back up. No matter how much fate and life hates Guts and screws up with him, he will not fall. If there is a message to be taken from Guts' story, is that no matter how bad the situation is, no matter how deep into the pit you are, there is always room for something good. Life is still worth living, still worth fighting. So keep on going and never give up, struggler. If you made it so far, thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to see people enjoying my work. If you enjoyed this type of content and want to see more, subscribe to this channel because more things just as interesting as this, if not even more, are about to come. Have a wonderful rest of the day and I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.